What's up, guys? It is IRGT85, and there's a couple stories going on right now that I definitely want to talk about. First off, a lot of you guys have been hitting me up feeling like Nintendo is potentially teasing some more classic consoles coming to the Nintendo Switch Online service. So we're going to talk about why people are thinking that and what my thoughts are on it as well. And then we're going to talk about the Sony State of Play event that happened yesterday, because honestly, it was kind of weird. So if this is your first time on the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Be sure to like and share the video. But without any further ado, let's talk about what's going on in the world of video games, and we're going to start things off with the State of Play event from yesterday. Now, of course, Sony was not at E3 this year, so there was lots of rumors about a State of Play event happening in the month of July. Obviously, Sony wants to showcase some of the games coming out for the PlayStation 5 for the second half of 2021, so a State of Play event made sense. And of course, we did get the announcement of a State of Play event. It was happening yesterday at 5 p.m. Eastern time, but we did learn that there was going to be no God of War Ragnarok. There was going to be no Horizon Forbidden West in this as well, and there wasn't going to be any new information on PlayStation VR stuff. So people thought, well, maybe there'll be some new announcements, maybe there'll be something big, something exciting. Deathloop was obviously going to be one of the key things from this, as there was going to be a 9-minute Deathloop presentation, but that did leave about 21 minutes to open to other games that we could potentially see Sony announce. And what we got, I don't know, it was kind of weird to me. Now, there was some stuff that I definitely liked from this event. The thing I liked most from this event was Saifu. I mean, like, maybe one day I'll learn how to say it, but I don't know, maybe it'll just end up being a running joke on this channel that I'm an idiot and I don't know how to say it. But this game definitely looked very awesome. I was hoping to see more from this game, and they definitely showed us more from this game. And I think the whole gameplay mechanic that this game is going to offer is really awesome. Basically, every time you die in the game, your character gets older, and when your character finally reaches a certain age, they will completely be dead, and you'll have to restart the game over from scratch. I think that's a really interesting mechanic, and it's something that we haven't seen in a game before. Now, how far will that mechanic go? It kind of remains to be seen. I hope, like, as your character gets older, like, you know, 50, 60 years old, like, they start to slow down, and maybe they're just not as strong as they were, you know, when they were in their 20s or 30s in this game, because I think that would be really cool. But one thing I am a little bit worried about is the fact that, you know, if you have to restart the whole game over, does that mean this is going to be somewhat of a short game? Will it be more of an arcade style game where maybe you're trying to do stuff like online leaderboard systems, like you get a higher score or something like that if you get it through the game without dying, you know, as much as somebody who dies, you know, 5, 6, 7 different times? It's kind of up in the air about that, but this game will not be coming out until 2022 now. This was supposed to be a 2021 game, and that's kind of a shame because I'm really looking forward to this game. Another game I really liked from this event was a game called Fist, which is like, I don't know, it looks like a cool 2.5D action platformer with a lot of style. You play as like this little hare or rabbit or something like that with toot and whatnot, but I definitely like the look of this game. I thought the combat looked really fun. The environments that you were in looked really cool. Definitely a lot of polish was put into this game, so this is a game I'm looking forward to playing in 2021. And they also showed off Moss Chapter 2. Now, I'm not a big PlayStation VR guy. I actually don't own a PlayStation VR, but I do know that Moss was one of the games that a lot of people really loved on the PlayStation VR, and for a lot of people that was a game to sort of buy a PlayStation VR. It was worth it at that point when that game came out, so definitely interested to see how that game turns out. You know, maybe I'll end up buying a PlayStation VR, but sort of beyond that, I don't know. Like, you know, of course Deathloop was there. I don't really care about Deathloop. It's not a game I'm super interested in, but there really wasn't any sort of other announcements. Some smaller indie games were there, and like, that's cool, you know, that's fine. People love indie games. I love indie games, but at a presentation where you're coming off of not being at E3, I think people expected there to be at least maybe one surprise game from either Sony or a third-party developer for the PlayStation 5, and there really wasn't that. There was like a new battle royale game and like some stylized shooter, online shooter coming to us from Ilphonic, who of course did Friday the 13th, so I am fans of them, but it's like you go from Friday the 13th to this, so it was definitely weird. I wouldn't say it was a bad presentation or anything like that. It was obviously, you know, sort of middle of the road for me. Obviously, if I was more into Deathloop, I probably would have enjoyed it more, but it does sort of make me wonder, like, what's the second half of Sony's PlayStation 5 lineup going to look like? Because it really looks kind of bare bones as of right now. Of course, there's going to be those bigger third-party games that come out, but as far as first-party offerings, I don't really think we're going to see many of them. God of War, Gran Turismo have both been delayed until 2022, and off the record, I've heard that Horizon Forbidden West might not hit the 2021 deadline either, so it'll be very interesting to see. Overall, a decent presentation, but I did think it was a bit weird, and I think a lot of people saw it that way as well. Let me know what you thought of the presentation in the comment section down below. And finally, a couple days ago on the channel, we of course talked about the latest Nintendo shareholders meeting and how President Furukawa basically said that they're looking for ways to improve the Nintendo Switch's online service. And that's something that a lot of people I feel are passionate about, because while the service is okay, there's obviously a lot of room for growth and improvement, especially considering the fact that you do pay $20 a year for this. Well, a lot of people hit me up yesterday based on something that was happening recently with Nintendo, where they felt that Nintendo was potentially teasing more classic consoles coming to the Nintendo Switch Online service. So I basically want to go over why people are thinking that and what my thoughts are on it as well. So basically, when you look at it, of course, there are two big games coming out in large franchises for Nintendo that are happening in 2021. Of course, next week, The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword comes out for the Nintendo Switch. We learn more about those quality of life improvements. Nintendo has actually done another trailer for it, basically showcasing the game. They showed that when you pick up an item for the first time, you will only get the little cutscene when it happens for the first time. So if you pick up a heart, instead of every time you pick up a heart, it says, oh, you picked up a heart. It'll only do it the first time, which I think is such a good quality of life improvement. And I am looking forward to this game because I didn't finish it on the Wii, but I could definitely understand why some people aren't looking forward to this game if they did finish it on the Wii. And then there's the whole $60 price point debate that you could get into as well. And of course, Metroid Dread, which is the first 2D Metroid game that we've gotten in a very long time. Of course, you know, not looking at Samus Returns, this is like the first new 2D Metroid game that we've gotten in nearly 20 years. So a lot of people are looking forward to this, but Nintendo has been doing some interesting marketing for both of these games on their various social media platforms, basically telling you to play the classic games in these franchises before jumping into the new one. When you look at what Nintendo is doing with Skyward Sword and The Legend of Zelda, they're basically saying, hey, look at these games on the NES and the SNES that you can play from The Legend of Zelda before you play Skyward Sword. And they're doing the same thing with Metroid as well, showing off Metroid and Super Metroid, which are available on the Nintendo Switch Online service. So people are like, well, if Nintendo said that they're looking to revamp and improve their Nintendo Switch Online service, and they have a bunch of consoles that they could add to the Nintendo Switch Online service, is this some sort of tease? Is this some sort of indication that Nintendo could be adding another console to the Nintendo Switch's online service? And maybe. Obviously, the console that I think Nintendo will add next, if they do decide to add a new console, would be the Game Boy family. I think you're looking at the Game Boy Advance as probably the best candidate for this. And when you look at the Game Boy Advance, obviously there are Legend of Zelda games on there, such as the Legend of Zelda Minish Cap, which you could put into that graphic and say, hey, look, we got more Zelda games for you to play. Same thing with Metroid, with Metroid Fusion and Metroid Zero Mission, which both came out on the Game Boy Advance. So once again, you're getting people to play the classic games before the newer games release, or even playing these games after the newer games release so they can see the sort of roots of these games. Obviously, that would be more so the case with The Legend of Zelda. And of course, looking at how the Nintendo Switch Online service is set up, it's been quite a while since we've gotten a new console. We started out with the NES, we then of course moved on to the Super Nintendo, and of course, offerings for both of these have sort of dwindled over time. You know, you used to get new games every month, and now it's like every 3 months or something like that. So adding in a new console to the Nintendo Switch Online service would be a good thing. You also have to remember there's going to be a lot of new Nintendo Switch owners with the Nintendo Switch OLED model that's coming out later this year. So once again, you're going to want those people to invest in the Nintendo Switch Online service. So what better way than to introduce them to Game Boy Advance games? And think of how those Game Boy Advance games would look on that OLED screen. I think they would look absolutely fantastic. So is this a tease of it? I'm not quite sure. I don't necessarily think so. I think they're just trying to market these games such as Skyward Sword and Metroid Dread to get people to want to be hyped for these games and to play the classic games before checking out these games to sort of whet their appetite with this. But do I think that there is a good chance of there being another Nintendo console added into the Nintendo Switch Online service before the end of 2021? I do think so. I think it makes a lot of sense, and I think the Game Boy Advance would be a perfect candidate for that because, like I said, you have a lot of classic Nintendo franchises on that. The Game Boy Advance was a portable system. The Nintendo Switch is a hybrid system where you could do portability or play it in docked mode, and I think those games will look really good on that OLED screen as well. So while this may not be a tease for it, I do think that there is a chance of Nintendo adding in the Game Boy Advance in 2021, but who knows? It is Nintendo at the end of the day, so I don't know. You never really know what the hell they're going to do next. Alrighty, so that is going to do it for today's video, but before we go, I want to do something that I don't do very often. I want to plug my Twitter and my Facebook account, which are in the description box down below. If you are a pro wrestling fan or an indie wrestling fan, I did something very stupid but kind of funny yesterday because I wanted to laugh. Basically, my buddies over at HD Retrovision Cables just hit 10,000 followers on Twitter. So somebody bought them a cameo from Amy Jo Johnson from the Power Rangers to celebrate their 10,000 followers on Twitter. So I thought to myself, you know, I want to do something funny. So I actually got Nick Gage from GCW Wrestling, CZW Wrestling. If you watch Dark Side of the Ring, you would know his story as well. He's one of the biggest independent wrestlers out there right now. But I did a $25 cameo to Nick Gage so that he could congratulate me on getting verified on Twitter. And it is the funniest thing in the world. I absolutely love Nick Gage. So this just made me crack up. I would have put it at the end of this video, but if you know anything about Nick Gage, he likes to use, you know, some controversial language or something like that. So follow me on Twitter, follow me on the Facebook account. I posted the video on there. Definitely worth my $25. Shout out to Nick Gage, MDK all day, baby. Let me know what you thought about this video and all of the topics we covered in the comment section down below. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Later.